The makers of Photoshop, Adobe, is dropping DEI. This appears to really be happening. I got to be honest, when I entered 2025, not on my bingo card. I knew Adobe was full in, both feet into diversity world come the end of last year. But now, yeah, it looks like they're bailing on it to an intense degree. And in fact, I've got some whistleblowers who are showing that some of the employees within Adobe are pretty pissed off about the change. This is very interesting. I put some reporting up on X last night as I was going through the leaks that were coming in, and I was going through some of the financial statements to try and really verify a lot of this. I'm going to just read some of this and walk you through it bit by bit here. All right. Adobe appears to be rapidly removing DEI from their corporation, including the complete removal of all diversity hiring quotas. And according to some leaks from within the company, not all employees are happy about it. Oh boy, that's an understatement. Let's start by looking at Adobe's proxy statement filed with the SEC. And if you don't know, a proxy statement gets filed with the SEC. It's one of many different pieces of paperwork that these corporations need to file every year. So last year, in 2024, the Adobe proxy statement was overflowing with DEI, right? It was crazy. It was a DEI document. They even had an Adobe board diversity matrix so you could know how many board members were which ethnicity and if any were non-binary or LGBTQ+, and dozens of diversity statements throughout the whole thing. I'm going to show this to you here because it's insane. I'm not going to walk you through the whole filing. They're all publicly available. You can check them out. But this is the board diversity matrix as of March 1st, 2024. So a little over 1 year ago. They have 12 directors on their board of directors. And they tell you how many of them are male or female, how many of them are Native American, Hispanic or Latinx, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, 2 or more races, LGBTQ+. They also let you count how many of them are non-binary or could not disclose their gender. Like it was crazy. Like why that matters, I couldn't begin to tell you. I couldn't begin to tell you why I would care who on my board of director is a non-binary Pacific Islander or not. I mean, if they are, but they're a great board of the director people, like they're really good at running the finances and driving the company. Great, I'm on board. But why do I care? Apparently, Adobe really did last year. Fast forward to today. The latest 2025 proxy statement, same document, next year, filed by Adobe just a little over a month ago. So beginning of March, again, they do that every year. That diversity matrix, gone. Totally gone. Nothing replacing it, right? In fact, the word diversity doesn't even appear a single time in the entire document. Here, I'm going to show this to you here. Here, I'm doing a search for the word diversity. 0 results. Now, you would say, well, why would you expect the word diversity to show up on an SEC document? Well, because the year prior, it was all about diversity. Like it was more, this was a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission for Adobe, and it was more about diversity than almost anything else. It was crazy. It was so off the charts woke. It was nuts. And again, this isn't just the word diversity. I was searching for all sorts of stuff. I read the whole thing. It was really moving away from diversity. It wasn't even using code words a lot. I mean, it was really moving away. All right. Continuing on. In Adobe's most recent Form 10K, which is another SEC filing, like I said, these companies, they file a lot of paperwork, and some of it is very public, and that is wonderful. This was filed only a few weeks before President Trump took office, right? And this is a really important one because this is a great way to narrow down when these changes are happening within Adobe. So a couple of weeks before President Trump's inauguration, the Form 10K was filed with the SEC. All right. At that time, the phrase diversity, equity, and inclusion were a big big talking point, really, really big. Here's one screenshot. We have a 3-pillar strategy to grow the diversity and inclusion of our workforce over time. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We care deeply about diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, they had a link to a page. Let me tell you that link right now, so you can check it out yourself. Adobe.com/corporate-responsibility, right? That page, very heavy on diversity, equity, inclusion. It was a DEI focused page. Okay. So that was a few weeks before President Trump took office. Then Inauguration Day. And right after Inauguration Day, President Trump filed those famous executive orders that were kind of putting the kibosh on DEI related stuff, right? Now, that same link, the link they call out very prominently, like go check out our corporate responsibility page. Let me show you what it looks like now. Sorry, we couldn't find that page. Head over to the Adobe homepage and check out some of our top products. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. Not slightly renamed. Not, we changed the word diversity to mean something else. We just don't use DEI anymore, but it's still the same. No, gone, deleted, all gone. Bye-bye. See you later. Just gone. Toast. I mean, this is big. Now, according to one Adobe whistleblower that reached out to the Lunduke Journal, God bless you, in a recent internal company call, the Adobe leadership team talked to the whole company about how they were minimizing DEI investment, scaling it way back, right? Dropping it all over the place. Now, some pro-DEI employees were not happy about that, specifically calling out the CEO, Shantanu Narayan of Adobe, and saying some pretty intense words. For example, executive orders are not laws, you cowards, specifically referring to Trump's executive orders. Like, we don't have to follow them. They're not laws, you cowards. And no, CEO of Adobe, this is not the way. And on and on and on. And it's funny because we saw really similar things from the IBM and Red Hat employees, right? After both the CEO of IBM and the CEO of Red Hat announced those changes to their companies, the employees, some of them were very happy because some of them were like, oh, thank goodness, we're finally getting rid of some of these DEI things. These diversity quotas are nuts. They're illegal. They're getting us sued into oblivion. Let's drop these things. Plus, it's just wrong, right? But other people, the DEI activists, the pro-DEI bunch, the wokies, if you will, they were furious. Oh man, they were calling the executives of IBM and Red Hat fascists and Trump bootlickers and all sorts of stuff. I published a bunch of leaked comments from all of them that you guys can all go check out. Go check out my past coverage of IBM and Red Hat from last week for that. But all of that's great. So all of that points to something changing. But the difficult thing with many of these changes is they're difficult to measure, right? If a company says, we love diversity, how do you measure that? If a company says we're reducing diversity, okay, great, but how do you measure that, right? So it's hard to follow up, measure, and really quantify all these, prove these things. One thing we can do, though, is begin to really narrow down on specific hiring policies, especially when there's numbers attached to them. So the most notable DEI change in Adobe is the complete removal of diversity hiring quotas. So previously, Adobe, and I'm just going to bring it up to you here, had 30% women, double the minorities, and double the black people hiring goals in place for leadership positions. They had some other quotas too. I think these were the most fascinating because they were very proud of these quotas. So this is from the old Adobe blog. They talk about how they wanted to reach certain goals, right? So they wanted to increase representation of women in leadership positions to 30% globally by 2025 and double the representation of underrepresented minorities and double black representation by 2025. Now, it's 2025. They're not updating this list. They're not coming up with new goals. They kind of got close to some goals. They reached some goals. They did not reach other goals at all. But regardless, they're just dropping it. they're just dropping it. This was from a few years back, and they're just dropping. I believe that was 2022 or 2023. That doesn't exist anymore. So as of this last week, those diversity quotas, all diversity quotas at Adobe are gone, not changed, not made vague, gone, right? And it's really important to call out that all of these changes, we can really narrow down the timing here. All of them within Adobe happened immediately following President Trump taking office and signing anti-DEI executive orders. That's just, I mean, it's hard to ignore that as anything other than having a great bit to do with it. I mean, shoot, even the Adobe employees assume that's the case. Criticizing the CEO of Adobe for kowtowing to executive orders. Executive orders are not laws, you cowards. So the people within IBM, they think the executive orders had something to do with, or within Adobe, think the executive orders had something to do with it too. Now, I'm going to be very clear about this. Does this mean that DEI is dead within inside Adobe? That there's just no more wokeness in DEI? No, not at all. Not even a little bit. But this is a significant step in the right direction, right? The illegal diversity hiring quotas are gone. Gone. They are no more. And that's easy to measure up, to follow up with. That, and you can guarantee that the Lunduke Journal will be following up on that. Because if we don't follow up on this stuff, what's the point, right? So the Lunduke Journal will be following up on all those details, and we'll be able to measure these things, and we'll be able to talk with their employees and talk with the consulting firms that they work with, and we'll be able to talk with the recruiters, and we can really narrow down on this. We can determine if they follow through on this. We also know that Adobe leadership, including their executives, are specifically telling employees that the DEI is the past. Now a lot of people, and rightly so, will say, oh, Lunduke, it's just a change in terminology, right? They're switching out DEI for bridge or some other terminology, or just saying inclusion, right? They're just using different word swapping techniques, but keeping the policies the same. And you might have some truth to that, right? Realistically, we've seen in multiple companies now where that exact thing has happened, right? So absolutely, that's something that is totally viable. The one thing that's interesting here is that in the areas where Adobe is taking the big X and crossing out and dropping a lot of their DEI discussions, they're not replacing it with something, right? They're not replacing it with similar discussions, but using different terminology. They're just simply dropping it. And they're telling their employees that DEI is gone, end of story. And they're just cutting it right there. And the fact that they're following that up by specifically getting rid of measurable hiring quotas, that's measurable. That's follow-upable, right? So we'll be able to know in the months ahead how honest Adobe is being here. But I think it should be stated right now that it looks like this is a major step in the right direction. And the pro-DEI activists, and this is really important, within Adobe are pissed. We're seeing the same things at Red Hat and IBM. The people who have been activists for DEI, promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, they are unhappy. They are confident that this is the death of their cause, of their political movement, and they are screaming about it. They are organizing it. We even saw over at Red Hat, they were threatening violence because of it. Right? They are convinced that their executive teams are being straightforward with them, that the DEI is gone. So we'll see. I will be following up on that as we go. Once again, there's a lot of similarities to what we saw with IBM and Red Hat here. I'm following up with a couple of other individuals related to the IBM story. I've reached out to multiple people within the Adobe story, and multiple people. So many companies going on right now with so many of these stories. It's kind of hard to keep them straight. And I'm trying to find out some more details. There's a lot to learn still, but interesting that this is happening just the same. Some companies are still doubling down on DEI, so it will be interesting to see how that changes in the weeks and months ahead. 2025 is turning out to be a really interesting one in all of the DEI related stuff. Holy heavens. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal for subscribers for making all of this possible. Go to lunduke.com, click on all the different ways to support the show and support the work and the reporting that I do, because no one else is doing this, right? You're seeing leaks from whistleblowers inside so many different companies, Microsoft and Adobe and IBM and Red Hat and on and on. There's so much stuff coming out. And we're able to get all that, curate it, verify it because of all of you. And we're able to dive into the tax records and SEC filing information all because of you. And no other tech news outlet on earth is doing that. Heck, no news outlet on earth is doing that with these big tech companies. And it needs to be done. It needs to be cataloged. It needs to be recorded and published in a truthful, verifiable, honest way. While I may have, and I certainly do, my own opinions, I try not to let my opinions get in the way of telling just the truth and digging in wherever this story goes. So thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for making it possible. I don't have to be beholden to any corporate overlord because of your support. No commercials, no corporate sponsorships. No one can cancel the Lunduke Journal. I can keep reporting on any of this stuff and go wherever the story goes because of you. It's amazing. I thank you. Bottom of my heart, could not do this without you. You're amazing. You are the best nerds on planet Earth. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast. Ooh, I got to click on the right thing. I found the button, ladies and gentlemen. Lunduke found the button. You're kidding. That's amazing. See you guys later.